Thank you again for joining. My name is Jennifer McCraw. I am the Marketing and Partnerships Manager here at Upward Sports. And today we are going to introduce to you, this is the first time, Upward Pickleball. And so on our webinar today, I brought two experts with us. First, I brought Joel Flauher. Joel is our Market Research Manager, and he's a League Director at Turning Point Church there in Cincinnati. So Joel, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
And then we also have Chad Boer. Chad is with Creekside Christian Church in St. John's, Florida. He's the community engagement minister there. He's a 3-year church partner here with Upward Sports as well. And he's a pilot partner for pickleball. So he's bringing the knowledge. So we're glad you're here, Chad.
Glad to be here.
All right. I thought to get us started, I see there's a lot of people still joining in. What I want you to do as we go through today to make this is very informal. I want you to be able to ask your questions, put them in the chat box. At the end of today's session, we will answer your questions live. Hopefully we'll do such a good job it'll answer the majority of your questions. But if not, we definitely want to take about 10 to 15 minutes to answer your questions. But before we get started, I want to put these guys on the hot seat, and I want you to get to know them a little bit so they can tell you where they've been and a little bit about who they are. So let's start with you, Joel. Tell us a little bit about you and maybe a fun fact. You know, I love a fun fact.
A fun fact. Okay, well, so a little bit about me. I'm a league director, as Jennifer mentioned, near Cincinnati, Ohio. Finished 15 years of basketball a couple weeks ago, and last spring started with pickleball. So we did a spring and a summer session, and then we're doing a spring session again, also that we can learn about how to do things with pickleball and kids. I've been with Upward Sports now for 11 years in the market research department. And so anything you tell us, anything you've ever said that you've shared with your rep or partner support, I get to read that, categorize it, and get it in the hands of people to make changes. And so those are the couple things about me. A fun fact.
Yes.
I would say a fun fact would be, and this is really more with my basketball team that I just coached this year. I have 4 boys, ages 10 to 24, and I've coached a long time, coached a lot of sports, and this was the first year that we ever won our end of season tournament. Okay. And my 24-year-old kept me humble. He said, well, it only took about 15 years. So there is hope for anybody who coaches.
That's great. That is awesome. Kids keep us humble, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. Thanks, Joel. We're glad you could share all that with us. We're excited about it. Chad, what about you? Tell us a little bit about you. Fun fact.
Yeah. So I wasn't going to mention some of this, but just because I saw some in the chat box there, I actually grew up near Pittsburgh. And so for my Cabot friend there, I actually grew up in Sarver. So we were very close in proximity. And then I've been moving progressively south. So I saw McLean in there. I moved to Virginia, lived there, got married there. And so we lived in Northern Virginia, really close to McLean. I saw one of those in the box too. And then we moved to Florida back in 2020. And so weather's always nice here. We love it here. And so I'm married, I have 2 kids, and they both love pickleball as well. And so I'd never played a paddle sport before pickleball. And so joined the church here, and we started having pickleball here. Came on staff as community engagement minister, as an associate minister at a church in Virginia before that. And so for the last couple of years, we've been playing pickleball. We had open leagues for the adults, and we've had kids before Upward even had the pilot for Upward Pickleball, and we have absolutely loved it here. Pickleball is huge in Florida, and it's been a huge influence on the community and the church in our lives, and so we love it. And fun fact, I was in culinary school before I did anything else. So I went from culinary to automotive into ministry. So a very interesting path in my life.
Absolutely. I was going to say my fun fact is I love to make biscuits, but culinary school, you probably could put me to shame there for sure.
I don't know about that.
All right, guys, we're going to jump in. Today is going to be filled with information. So again, you will get this replay tomorrow. A lot of you have been asking me, hey, I heard you're going to give away 2 net sets, and we're going to talk about that as well. So I wanted to give you guys 3 topics that we're going to cover today. Our first topic is going to talk about why Upward Pickleball and what is the structure. So we're going to talk through that and these guys have been pilot partners, so they're going to share their experience, whether what they've learned or what they're looking forward to. So we're going to talk to them about that. Our second topic is going to be about apparel and the resources that Upward Sports will provide you when you launch this sport. And then 3, of course, how do we get our net sets? And so we're going to talk about how do we claim these 2 net sets after this webinar today. So those are our 3 topics. If you're on here today, you may be in 2 different categories. 1, you may be an Upward Sports church partner and you're saying, hey, I've been doing Upward for many years or maybe a year, and I'm ready to add a new sport. And so this is going to be easy for you because you're going to be able to log into your portal in coming days and be able to create a league. If you're on here and you're saying, hey, I stumbled across this, or I'm interested in sports ministry, and pickleball is a great way to start, we're going to walk you down that avenue as well so that you will be able to schedule a call and get this moving at your church as well. So with further ado, boys, here we go. Let's talk about why pickleball and the structure. So Joel, tell me a little bit about your market research. Why did we go the direction of pickleball now? And then explain about how the flexibility or maybe the ease of adding pickleball as a sport option.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. So we started, I guess it was 2.5 years ago, started seeing people asking about pickleball. And we know it's a fast-growing sport. A lot of adults play it. And so as we gather feedback, we thought, well, let's look into this deeper. We also know that churches want to stay connected to their middle and high school students longer. And so we thought maybe this is a good fit where you can continue that connection point for middle and high school students and kind of latch onto a growing sport. And so we thought, well, let's see if this is something we can design for kids. We know adults are interested in that, but we also know that there's a gap there in that the church wants to connect with middle and high schoolers. And so why not combine those 2? And so that kind of gave us a head start into looking at pickleball. We then did some pilot programs within the last year, within the fall, and got some really good feedback in those. And so just continued to develop resources. But I would say it's a fast-growing sport. It's a way to connect with middle and high schoolers. And we had people telling us they were interested. And so those were the main reasons we looked at it. The other thing is, it's a super flexible sport as far as where you can set up. And so you don't need any specialized facilities for the most part. You can play it inside or outside. So whether you've got a gym, or I talked with someone who had a big kind of a big welcome area in their church, high ceilings, big area, and they were actually setting up to play with adults in their welcome area. So it's flexible. You can do it inside. You could also do outside. So if you have a parking lot with a flat area, you can set up a couple nets. A net takes about 10 minutes to set up, and you can get playing. So ease of setup, I think, is a big piece of that as well.
I love the part that you mentioned indoor, outdoor, multi-purpose area. I know there was a question on here. When you guys registered was, hey, I don't have a gym, I don't have outdoor space, but I have a large multi-purpose welcome center. And I thought to myself, what a great spot for that, especially with the versatility of setting up the net sets. So pickleball is here and it's going to be launched in the coming days, and we're excited about that. Chad, tell us, as a league director or even as a church leader in your church, why did you choose pickleball as this sport for your church?
Yeah. So here in Florida, it's huge. I mean, pickleball is very, very quickly growing, as Joel mentioned, and Florida is one of the kind of hot spots for it. The weather here kind of allows that outside. They can play it all year round, and it's such a great sport for any age. So we're seeing roughly, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, but roughly that 10-year-old sweet spot of them actually being able to get the mechanics of it. And then that grows. And we've had people here in our adults that have played there in their 80s. And sometimes they play, various mixed groups. So you got 40-year-olds playing with 80-year-olds, and they're still good games. And so you're finding such a great age range. It's multi-generational, which allows that. And then the cost is really, really helpful too. The entry level to a lot of sports, I have kids that play sports, and so entry level for kids that play sports, it can be several $100s just to get the equipment that they're likely going to grow out of in a season. And the nice thing about pickleball is it's not heavy on that. If you have a net at the facility you use, you might have a couple balls that you bring and a paddle and athletic shoes. I mean, it's not complicated and it's not expensive to get into it. And that made a huge benefit for us as a church to be able to do it and try it. And there wasn't even a lot of investment on our part to give it a shot, and it grew very quickly.
That's great. So you talked about that sweet spot of the 10-year-old and older. Joel, I heard you talk about when we first started middle school, high school. So with Upward Pickleball, when it is launched on 4/1, what do you see as the best age? Speak to, like, on your side, Joel, the market research, what we're offering. That would be helpful. And then I'm gonna bounce back after you answer that to Chad of, like, why did you feel that, like, the 10-year-old was the sweet spot area there? So first, Joel, answer it. Tell us what our materials would provide us. What age?
Yeah, so the materials that we'll have are similar to what you get with other sports. You'll have devotion content and practice plans, and those are geared for that middle school and up age range. And so the questions are interactive with the devotions. When we did some of our pilot programs, one of them was third grade and up, and the feedback was third graders are probably a little young. Not that they can't hit the ball, but one of the things you find is they can't do it consistently. And so it might be similar to if you did, other sports, volleyball, for example, where a third grader, it's hard for them to get the ball over the net or to return a serve. And so that's where we would look and say, well, maybe there's a different style of program, and maybe we'll talk about camps and clinics at some point, but that's probably the route if you go with younger kids. But really that middle school and up, those were the ones that could pick it up quickly and seemed to enjoy it. One of the pilots, it was really good the way they engaged the middle and high schoolers. They're very intentional with that and saw it as an outreach for their youth pastor. And so, so we're going to equip it like we do for other sports. It's going to be very intentional with the devotion content. And we think it'll be really, really well received for those middle and high schoolers who like to get out and compete and play pickleball.
Perfect. So if you're on here, your materials will be geared for middle school and high schoolers when it comes to practice plans and devotion materials. So that will be the target age range. Not adults yet. I know that's the question. And we'll talk about that in a second. But Chad, tell us, as the pilot partner there, what age you started with. And I heard you talk about 10, why that age? Yeah. What did you learn there?
Yeah, and that was a really great question. I mentioned it. We tried pickleball, kids pickleball, prior to Upward even releasing it, because we had such a tremendous community that wanted to do it with their kids, and the adults leagues were really booming. And so we started, and I actually put it out 7 to 12. We did that range, and it was good, but we broke them up by age groups. And what we have is we have an indoor setup. So we have a basketball court with a more rubberized flooring, and it doesn't matter. Hardwood floors work great for this too. But we have 3 courts, and there's about 12 feet between the courts. And so that, when you do the younger groups, their physical mechanics and them, like you said, hitting the ball and understanding the control of that is much more difficult to teach in the earlier stages. And so the balls were interrupting the other games and the other courts. So that was one factor that we had to consider. And then we tried doing barriers and things like that to help with that. But then what we found is they weren't even able to serve. If they were 7 years old, they weren't even able to serve correctly. So then we're modifying the rules. And then it became a kind of like keeping rallies up was hard. So what you end up finding is, to Joel's point, a clinic, a camp, you could do things where you could teach skills. You could maybe have them up closer to the net and play games with one another that would teach the physical mechanics. But in an 8, 9, 10 week league, you're not going to see that progression where by the middle of it to the end of it, they're really playing full games until about that 10-year-old range. That seemed to be the sweet spot where physicality mattered, size mattered, they could compete with one another, and they could get rallies going. So we stuck with that, and we did our pilot from 10 to 15. And that 10 to 15 year range did great. We have kind of an advanced with the older kids because of their size, especially the boys. They physically start to grow right around that 13 year point, and they get quite a bit taller in a lot of ways. And that changes the dynamics of it. Even when you have maybe their skill level isn't as much, their physical presence gives them an advantage. So we started to shift it. So right now we're doing 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and that seems to be good.
So when you do this advanced, it got me thinking about this. So when you do the advanced, do you do like an evaluation time, or do they show up and you put them on their right teams? How did you figure that out?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the first time we did a traditional, which I know Joel's going to speak about here momentarily, but when we did the traditional setup first time where there was going to be a practice night and a game day, we did set up an evaluation, and we set up some basic evaluation standards. We had each of the players come through and do that. And that gave us a pretty good idea. Within the first 2 weeks, we had a few players, not many, but we did have a few players we had to move both down and up based on a couple factors. And then we had a pretty good league for the rest of those several weeks that we did it. We did an 8-week, actually it was a 9-week setup, but we did the rest of the games and practices. It worked well. For this year, what we decided, because we're doing the other way, the practice and play method, which we'll learn more about in a little bit, that one, because it didn't really matter, you were still going to play anyway. You weren't getting moved or grouped. It was by age. We just went ahead and did not do an evaluation, but our first night we're doing double practice, so there's no game. And if we decide that in that we see some things we need to adjust, then we will. And we ask if they want to move to the other group because they're just that much more advanced. But we don't suspect that that'll be a deal breaker for most people this time around either.
Great, that's very helpful. I was just curious about that. Let's talk about the adult side of this. I know that was one of the questions I saw come through a lot was, hey, can we do upward pickleball for adults? And so Joel, as a market research side, explain a little bit about how adults can get involved, and when is this going to be open for adults? Hit on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good question. The adults, of course, I talked to some people that only do it for adults, and they would say, well, they'll play till midnight if you let them. Like, I have to kick people out with the adult side of things. And so you might think, well, maybe you start with adults because you have a natural base there. If we start with kids, the thing that you'll have is if you start with middle and high schoolers, 10 years old and up, that 5th grade and up, you can take that group of excited individuals and have them help you as coaches. And it was really interesting in some of the situations, and Chad was one of these. They had a great student to teacher ratio, let's say, coach to player ratio. And it was the older adults who were enthusiastic about teaching something to a group that they normally don't get to interact with. And so it's a really good bridge within the church. You've got middle and high schoolers who are now engaging with people who are older, and connecting those two groups so they can learn from each other and they can play together too. So there's an opportunity as you're coaching to engage those players in practice and pass on knowledge that you know. And then your question of, hey, what about adults? We'll get there. I'm working on a project right now that's investigating adult sports and how those are done and what are some things that are missing. And so if you're somebody who does adult sports, let me know. Put it in the chat.
Yes,
I'd love to talk
put
to
it
you.
there.
Yeah, we'll look at that next. There's no timeline on when that would occur, but I think it's something that we do want to explore and do want to investigate further to see if there's any potential there for us.
Yeah. Chad, tell us how you do something really, I almost say creative, but I think it's creative, for your adults to get them involved and sort of to bridge that divide so they still get that opportunity to play. Tell me a little bit about, or tell everybody what you do there.
Yeah, thank you. So we do open adult sports. We have a couple different sports, volleyball, basketball, and we've had some leagues that have been paid in the past for softball and basketball as well. But then this time for pickleball, when we started introducing it, because we didn't know what we were getting into, we've done completely, just free, open play pickleball. And now what's happened is we have pickleball more days than anything else. So we have pickleball Monday nights, Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday nights, Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday nights, Thursday nights. And then sometimes during the year, we'll have it either Fridays or Saturdays because we have some volunteers that want to run it for different segments of time. And because of that, I go over and I just engage that. And I play it too. I like to be there and play it. But at the same time, just being there, having my face there, and just getting to meet the people, we're talking huge age ranges, everywhere from, like I said, 10, 11, the whole way to in the 80s. And we're seeing around 150 unique individuals play every week at the church. And so with that, it made the pool for coaches easy. And all but one of my coaches this year plays pickleball regularly here. And then the other one does play regularly, just not here at the church. And so that made it's just easy. I mean, now we have a coach to player ratio that's tremendous. Last season we did as well. We had 2 coaches for every 4 players, and we're almost that same ratio again, that's just the best way, is to, like Joel said, your pool of people is fantastic if you start with the adults.
Love that. We had talked about the coach to player ratio, and that might be a question on here for people listening is, what is the coach to player ratio?
Yeah, I think the best way to do it is to have at least an adult for every court. You can, in one of our pilots, you have one coach and you've got 2 courts going on and trying to manage 2 of those at the same time. It can be done. It's challenging though. So even if you have one person who will say, I'll be the coach, we'll call them, and have a parent come along and help, just to help players learn how to keep score and to play the game. So the best way to do it is a parent or coach per court, understanding you could do it with fewer. And I think once parents can observe how easy it is to teach, if you ask them, they'd be more than willing to jump in, I think. And that's what we did with our pilot, is we had parents that kind of hung around all the time. And one guy offered suggestions, and I said, you sound like a coach. And so he stepped up and joined us the rest of the season with coaching, and did a really good job with it. So
if you're on here, I hope you see that this is a great way, multi-generational, to bridge this gap. Again, Upward Pickleball will be geared middle and high school. This is a wonderful way to involve probably people that are not serving in other ways in your church. And this is something they're extremely passionate about, is pickleball, and extremely passionate about Jesus. Such a great way to bridge that.
Chad had a story that I think would be interesting with the player to coach ratio. Real briefly, can you tell about the coaches who went to hang out with?
That's great.
Yeah. So last season, because again, we're talking about having such a higher player to coach ratio, so they're very close knit. Let's put it that way. They get to converse a lot. The bond was great, and so one of the players invited their coaches to go to her music recital. And so one of the coaches was able to go, took his wife, and they went. And generationally, they're very different generationally. And they went, and just the support, seeing the mom, seeing the support from the coaches, she was interested then in the community that was created from the adults. She was invited and took up the offer to go to a women's pickleball event at the church, and met a lot of wonderful ladies there, was so supported that then she started coming to the church. And so it became an unintended, but now we want to make it more intentional, outreach to the community, so that folks that maybe are just wanting to learn more about pickleball, they may end up meeting Jesus along the way. And I think that's ultimately the best thing that could happen.
That's wonderful. And that is what it is all about. So I love that. I do want to answer one question, Chad, before we move on. Chris had asked, are all your coaches from your church? We have 4 different times of open play, but most of them aren't. Can you touch on that really briefly?
Yeah, so we see pretty much in every sport that we participate in, whether it's kids or adults, we have the same kind of ratio, which is very interesting. We have a ratio of about 33, about a third, right? 34, 35% of our folks that engage in our sports, whether it's an upward sport or an adult sport, are from our church. And then about another third-ish are from other churches in the area. And then the last third are from folks that are not a part of any church affiliation at all. And so the coaches that we have, most of them are from our church. And then the other ones, some of them are from other churches, but they play here regularly because their church doesn't offer it, or maybe they offer it, but it's not as many times of the week and ours are more convenient, those kind of things. And so one of the questions that I saw come through that I'll just point out is every single one of our coaches does still go through background checks. Florida has some very strict rules on that were recently just changed. And so we still go through all the necessary processes to have them with kids, and we make sure that they're able to do that. But when you ask them if they want to be a coach, they kind of already know if they're going to pass that. And so if they say yes, then I haven't had one not pass yet, but we'll still continue to check them.
Love that. So keep the questions coming. I know there's going to be a lot about this subject, so we'll circle back at the end. I do want to keep moving for time's sake about the structure. And Chad, you hit on this a little bit too earlier, but there will be two formats. Again, this is a league only at this point. If you know Upward Sports, we offer camp, clinic, and leagues. But for now, Upward Pickleball is league only. And so there will be two flexible league options when you log into My Upward, which My Upward is your platform where you will create your Upward Pickleball League, and that's where you will have your online registration, you'll access your practice plans, your resources. That is your lifeline, right? That is where all your ministry materials and resources will live in My Upward. But there will be two flexible options that you get to choose. And so I want to break each one of these options down for you so that you understand how it works, also the structure of it, because I love the flexibility and the versatility in it. So let's talk about the first option, Joel, and then Chad, you jump in as well, because I know you've done one and then you're about to start the other. The traditional league is what the majority of our Upward Sports partners on here know, which is that weekly practice and one game day. So Joel, talk about that format, the traditional, and maybe the structure of how you guys have done that.
Yeah. So a traditional league, like you mentioned, with an Upward Sport, you have a practice during the week that is usually an hour and 15 minutes long, could be an hour and a half. And then you have a game on a separate day. And most of the times, those are done on Saturdays. And so you have your practice, you have your game. A traditional season would last anywhere from 8 to 11 weeks. We have some churches that'll go 6 or 7 weeks. But the goal is you have two set events, your practice day to teach the skills and drills, and then you have a game day that's set aside for that. Having those two events, you're able to have some ministry touch points that are unique to both of those. You also then have some ways to celebrate game day, and not that you can't do that in the other model, but you're lining yourself up for two different events when you do the traditional model. And all of that is set up, like you mentioned, through the systems, through My Upward, where players register. That's where your volunteers would register. There's a checkbox in there for volunteers to register there as well. But that's the traditional model, and Chad did that for his pilot. And then we have the other version, which is the practice and play model.
So let's talk about the traditional. Chad, you mentioned you did evaluations. You know, you even did you do an end of season tournament? I know that was a question in here as well. So tell us a little bit about the traditional league, why you liked it, you know, what you learned there. Give us a little bit of information.
Yeah, it was awesome to do it. You're thinking through the traditional league. So we did 8 weeks, and we actually did an offset. So we started a week of practice with no game because of the way the calendar fit. So we actually had an offset where we still only had 8 practices and 8 games, but they were just offset by 1 week. And so, but you could do easily 9 or 10. The first couple, we did an evaluation. Then the first couple weeks, the coaches, we let them be more on the court, especially with the younger kids playing and kind of helping them through it. But still, by the end, we actually let all the players call their own shots, but we kept coaches at the net, and they would override if they saw something that was vastly different, especially if it was going to impact the game as a whole. we played as or I should start. If we do practice nights, the nice thing about that was they had teams. So they had teams and they had coaches. We had teams of 4 players. We have since learned that that's probably not quite the right number because we needed subs about 50% of the time. And so we would increase that number to at least 5, if not 6 people per team and work through a rotation. But we had those kids play. Each team split. So if we had 3 teams per group, and so you'd have team A play B on, say, one court, and then team A play C on another court, and then B play C on the last court. And then we actually kept them the same players each time, and they played kind of a best of 3 almost. We did play to 11, win by 2, normal scoring, but then we added a 15-minute time limit with some overtime rules if it went too long. And sometimes the younger kids would struggle with getting to 11, at least in the first couple weeks, and so we would implement that. But what was nice about the game days versus the practice, they were learning the skill, and you would see them sometimes struggle with that skill. But it was almost like they needed the time over the next couple days for their mind to catch up to what their body and was learning, and vice versa. And so then on game day, they would be quite a bit more improved, even though it was only a couple days later. And so we would make game day a big deal. So they run through a tunnel at the beginning. We announce the teams, the coaches run in, the parents are high-fiving. We'd have Mike running, music, lights, the whole thing inside our gym. And we made it this huge thing that these teams were coming in. They all had names very creatively. They loved it. Their jerseys were different colors for each of the teams. And so that was a huge, huge win. The parents just loved the excitement. The players did that. I did a minor commentary during the games to let parents know if something was maybe odd to them. They're watching normal gameplay and then someone does an ATP around the post. And I would comment down, if you were watching court 1, you'd see that. And so that was really helpful. The practice play, we haven't jumped into the season yet, but we do have some major differences in how we're going to run it. I don't know if Joel wants to touch on that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the practice and play, that's the other model, is everything occurs on one set day. You practice, and then you as you work over the course of the season, you incorporate more game time. And so you want to think of it as a session. And so if you have 2 courts, you probably have 8 to 10 players in that session. They're going to play and practice together over the course of the season. You may have, if you have back-to-back time slots, you could always have the 6:30 group play the 7:30 group and mix it up as the season goes on. But the idea is that you have one event that parents are coming out to. And some of the feedback we got, parents would say, man, we really like this. We could do pickleball. Since it's a new sport, we could try this out and still do other sports on the weekend. But I do also think with that, there are going to be kids that go, this is kind of my main sport. I really like it. I really enjoy it. And there are, I think the number now is 18 states where they've incorporated pickleball as a high school sport. And so you'll have players that will kind of use this as a pickleball season. But with practice and play, the idea is you're coming out one time, you're doing your skills and drills, but over the course of the season, you're transitioning to more gameplay. And so by the end of the season, you're probably doing a 5 to 10 minute warm up maybe, and then using the rest of the time to play matches. Games will go about 15 minutes each. And so if you play a set, you've got about 45 minutes there. And you could always go longer too. You could always do an hour and a half or do a 2-hour session where you're still incorporating your practice and then going to games. The idea with practice and play is that it all occurs on one evening so that you're not coming out for a second day. And we wanted to see how that works with youth and especially a new sport like pickleball.
If you're on here, you have 2 options. You have the traditional or the practice and play, which I'm so curious about the practice and play because I feel like that gives kids another opportunity, like you said, Joel, to play another sport or if they're involved in something else. So that's cool. I like that. We're going to park here for 1 more minute, and then we're going to move in to the resources that we're providing. But for everybody that's on here, I'm curious, who is interested in traditional? Who is interested in practice and play? Put it in there. I just want to see what it is. So go ahead and put that in there. While everybody is putting that in the chat box, I'll ask you this, Chad. For our listeners that are in here today, what is one thing from the traditional? I know you're just stepping into the practice and play. What is one thing you wish maybe, not that you would have changed, but maybe you would have done different, or the aha moment, that big learning for you?
Yeah, I definitely learned that you need subs when you do a game day on a Saturday, around 50% of the time, and that was a huge aha. I don't think we'll run into it on a weeknight with the practice and play nearly as much, which we still accounted for some subs by increasing the number of people that we have. And so initially we only did 4 people per team, which meant 12 per group. This time we increased it and we're doing 15 per group. So we have 30 people that are going to be in the league. And so if we actually had enough people sign up that, in the wait list, that we could have probably done another younger group and had 3 groups of 15 and had 45. And so the player number compared to other sports is a little lower. I know that's a concern for some folks, but the subs was a big thing. Understanding how you're going to handle subs, because we were scrambling last season to find subs, and we thought, well, we'll bring some of the older group down or the younger group up. That was not effective. And so then we were trying to find folks that maybe were more on that wait list, or they just didn't make it by time to sign up, and then we knew they could play. And so I was contacting other parents, which is good reason to have your adult league, and going, hey, would your son want to play? I know he's come out a couple nights, whatever, and that helped a ton. But that would be a huge thing that we learned and would want to make sure that we were invested in the future.
Thanks for sharing that. So do y'all want to know what one? Practice and play or traditional? For now, it is practice and play. And so that is what our listeners on here are interested in. There's a few more questions we're going to answer in just a minute. So hang tight. Let's jump to apparel and resources, because I like the swag, right? You see some right here behind me. I like a little bit of the swag, and so I want to talk about that. So if you're on here, just like all other Upward Sports leagues, you will be resourced. You get to pick and choose what you want to offer your player. You get to create your own package, and I love that. So you can put as much or as little as you want. Again, this will be available to you April 1, with first practice starting after 7/1. So Joel, take us through a little bit about the ministry resources and the practice plans that will be available inside of My Upward.
Yeah. And we really want to focus on the ministry resources too, because that's an important piece. You want to do the sport well, and you want to do the ministry well. And so we're going to equip you to be able to do that like we do with all the other sports. And so coaches will have weekly practice plans that they can use. They'll have, those will include the devotions. You'll also then have access to league director guides, all the other communication tools, the parent companion that goes with the devotion content. The devotions will include the scouting report like they do for other sports. And the idea with the scouting report is a coach who's preparing for practice takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes to read through that scouting report, gives them background on the devotion so that they can be prepared. And then hopefully they grow spiritually too. Like, this is a little mini Bible study for them to be ready for practice and for doing the devotion. So we'll have those resources there, practice plans, all the things you'll need from a leadership perspective, all the communication tools, all the advertising resources that you'll need. And then when you start to think through like the apparel and the package that they can build, when you and those of you who might not have been involved with an Upward program before, you'll log into My Upward. You'll customize the package that you want so that it fits the price and the style that you want for your community. And so you'll have options on shirts. There'll be a t-shirt option. There'll be a jersey option. You can put shorts in the package or not include those. You can have paddles in there as an option or not include those. Those can be something that you leave as optional, and a parent could say, well, I'll buy those for my kid because they don't have a paddle. Interesting note on the paddle is we found as you got further into the season, more and more kids started showing up with their own paddle because they're going, wait a minute, I love this sport. What more can I do? And so those will be on there, balls, the net sets will be on there that you can purchase. So the key, I think, is it's customizable and you're building the package that you want so you meet that price that you're looking for that is similar to what you're seeing in your community. So everything we do, we want it to be ministry driven, quality sports, and then optionality so you can build the program that you want for your community.
So when you create your league inside of My Upward, if you choose this practice and play, all of the materials that are under your resources will be specific to that format. So keep that in mind. If you're doing the traditional, it'll be the same. And you heard Chad mention evaluations. So you'll be able to put your players inside of My Upward, communicate to them, put them on teams, just as you do with a traditional league inside of My Upward right now for basketball, for soccer. So that's great. One thing I wanted to hit on is the practice plan. Is it one plan for all ages, as in middle school all the way up, or is it broken down by specific ages, Joel?
Yeah, it's really good. And we want to learn. So we'll have a version that we send out now, and we really do want to hear from you to say, wait a minute, that doesn't work. And so this first go around, we'll have one devotion track that you can select from. Our other sports, you do a virtue or a theme version. The first time around, we'll have one version that you'll use, and it is geared for middle and high school. The questions that are inserted throughout the devotion that a coach can use to generate discussion there. And so there'll be one track that they'll use throughout. And I think we did a really good job. We learned from the pilot programs. One of the things was they said, we need more drills that are appropriate for middle and high school. And so we inserted, I think we found about 6 or so other games that could be played that teach the skills of pickleball, but add an element of competition. And that's important for middle and high schoolers, is they want to go and then they want to learn, but also compete at the same time. So we think we have a really comprehensive practice plan, especially for that first through third year coach. That's going to be like their bread and butter. They're going to follow it. And you'll have those that are a little more experienced that'll go, oh, I like this drill. I definitely want to do devotion. I'm going to put a little drill in here that I've learned. So there's some flexibility with that practice plan as well.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to ask 2 more questions in this section, and we're going to stop and we're going to let you ask some live questions. So listen and then keep adding your questions. Chad, tell me about the practice plans. You open gym for your adults. So tell me about how your coaches did. I know they're passionate and they probably, are maybe more seasoned. So tell me a little bit about the practice plans with your coaches. How did it work?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think this right here displays the flexibility of Upward tremendously. Is the drills are good, and for folks that walk in and have never coached, maybe even never played pickleball before, they become extremely valuable, as Joel mentioned. But then using the adults that are already playing as the coaches, many of them knew how to play, knew the mechanics, and they had a real heart to be able to teach it. And so a lot of them looked at the drills and went, okay, these are good. It's good to know kind of maybe the progression, but they went in and did a lot of their drills themselves. And so they didn't use the plans nearly as much as maybe somebody that was starting out is, and that was fine. The kids loved that, and the kids and the parents both got an equally valuable experience out of it.
That's great. So let's talk about price. That's our last question in here. I see some questions coming through here, so I definitely want to cover that. Again, if you're on here, you get to create your package based off of what you want, as much or as little as you want to add in there per player. Chad, Joel, either one of you jump in here, talk about what pricing for the league. How did you set your pricing? I know you look at your community. You don't want to be under the community. You want to be equal to it. So help us understand the pricing or even the average pricing you're seeing for this.
Yeah, I mean, our product, the way that we do it here is we look at the community, like you said, and see what the market is, and we use a market minus approach. So we want to be just under the market to make it a little more accessible to folks. But you got to remember that a product that has quality has a cost that comes along with it. And so if you undervalue it too much, then there is an assumption or perception by those people looking at it that it isn't that good. And so we actually run ours right around the $145 mark for a season. And that's right in line with what other programs are. It may even be a little under what other programs are here in this area. We could probably charge a little more, but we don't see the need to do that.
Joel, what about you?
Yeah, we were similar. We looked at what other people were charging. I looked at, there's a large facility near us, and they were about anywhere from $10 to $15 for an hour. And so we just calculated that out. And if we did an 8-week season, we needed to be somewhere between $80 and $120. So you do want to look at what other people in your community are charging, and that will be helpful to set your price. So yeah, we're in that $80 to $120 range is what I would aim for. And then for those of you who've done an upward sport before, you're building your package. So you're the one that's creating the cost of what it costs you to do a league. And so it will be similar to what you would be used to with other sports.
Perfect. And William asked, is that $145 per season per player? Yes, that is correct. Keep in mind too, if you're running your upward sports leagues, other outside of pickleball, don't undercut yourself here. Make sure that you're equal, right? Because it's the same quality, it's the same experience. So you want to set that.
I saw a question there, and somebody asked about kind of startup. And when we were doing our pilot programs, we kind of went through and calculated, it's probably $1,200 or so to start up, depending on the cost of the nets that you have. So you'd have a net, you'd probably have 12 to 24 balls per court. Find a big Tupperware bin or plastic bin to store them in on each court. You probably have you would need a way to line the courts. With our pilot program, we had paddles on hand that kids could use. So there was that cost associated with it. So it really is, as far as, and we've mentioned before, it's a lower cost getting started program that you can do in your gym. You can do in the parking lot. I had somebody who said they've done pickleball and they have a carpeted gym.
Yep.
And it works. So there really is the flexibility of inside or outside parking lot gym space that you have to make it work.
And you said 1,200. Was that, how many courts was that you did with that 1,200?
I think we were figuring 3 to 4 courts. Most of the people that we've talked to have room for 2 or 3 courts. I think that's 70% of the people have room for 2 to 3 courts.
In their gym, right?
Cost is a little less.
In their gym.
Questions? Yeah, in a gym. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, of course you could have outside and have a big old parking lot and
Right.
line courts out there and have a bunch of them, or use a city park. You don't have to. There are churches that are located next to schools or parks. Find a way to use those to do ministry.
That's great. So I'm not going to talk about the net sets yet. I'm going to go ahead and open live questions because I see them coming in. So we're going to take about 7 to 10 minutes here, and then we'll end with our net sets so you can claim your net sets. So go ahead and put your questions in, and then I'll put these guys on the hot seat. I did want to just circle back while you're putting your questions in here to remind you that, our mission at Upward Sports is to promote the discovery of Jesus through sports. And so whether you're a current Upward Sports church partner and you've been doing ministry for a long time, or you're brand new and you're just trying to see who we are, know that that is our heart. And so the desire to use pickleball as a outreach to your community when it comes to reaching middle school and high schoolers, that is our heartbeat. And so our desire is to have an excellent sports experience for sure, but our ministry resources allow you to engage families and to engage these players for the sole purpose of introducing them to Jesus. So I did want to make sure that you guys that are on here do understand that these ministry resources are top notch to help you do just that. Let's answer some questions. I'm not going to call on who, Chad or Joel. You guys just jump in and we will go through. If you don't have a gym but a parking lot, would that work?
Yes.
All right. Pat asked, can we get a sample of a devotion to review? Absolutely, Pat. We can get you that. Here's a question. Could we just, it's going faster than I can read. Could we just use the Upward system for registration and not purchase a player package? Joel, you want to take that one?
Could you just use the system for registration and not purchase a player package? You could. There are options and there's flexibility in there to where you don't have to select a shirt or a jersey. You don't have to have any of the other optional items there as well. So you could do that.
Absolutely. Also, you'll want to use the online registration system, so that is part of the package. Could you please explain, Tammy asked this, could you please explain in further detail the way that a game would work inside of a practice and play?
Yeah, so the way a game would work would be similar to what you would do if it was the traditional format where you have a separate game day. You're just incorporating it all into one time slot. And so you're playing a game, and you have some flexibility with pickleball. You can play games typically to 11 and 1x2. You could also, if you look and you see, well, I've only got 10 minutes, play a game to 5. Like be willing to be flexible and learn so that you're creating a program that your community wants. And so there's flexibility with that. So on that practice and play version, as the season progresses, and there's notes in the practice plan that say, as the season progresses, you'll spend more time playing games. And the game is simply, you could look at it as a scrimmage with all of those players that are in that session that you have. You could pair people up. You could alternate partners throughout the game. There's a lot of flexibility when you play the game of pickleball.
One question was to you, Chad, was about players. How many players do you have in your traditional league? How many should you expect?
Yeah, so and I saw another question. I kind of answered them together. There's it's going to matter a little bit by court number. So on our basketball court, and I have another church in the area that has a full-size basketball court, we're able to do 3 courts, and so we have 12 feet between the 2 courts, and then I think the sides might only be 10 for the far sides, but the actual space between the courts is 12 feet. We got 3 courts on there. And so we use, somebody asked, we use Champion Sports floor tape 2-inch wide, and we actually just tape our lines onto our courts. You could have them painted. Other churches a hardwood court, and they actually just redid their hardwood, and they put in actual lines for volleyball, basketball, and pickleball, and they just used 3 different colors. And the way that they did it, they didn't overlap the lines, and it worked out well. The number of courts determines the number of players. So on a traditional one, we started with 4 because we could have 3 teams play at once on a game day and practice at once. And we decided with the number of subs we needed that if we were to do it again, I would probably do 6. So then on the practice and play, we do ours the long version. So we actually have still an hour of practice. We have a 15-minute devotional and snack time in between. And then we're anticipating roughly hour of games to do 3 to 4 games in the next hour for the kids. And so we're doing 15 players on each one of those, and they're all the same team. They're all just one big team, and they're all playing kind of this round robin together, where say the winners would stay on the court split, and we'll bring in the other 2. So now no one's sitting out for more than 1 game because they're coming in, and then they're going to keep getting rotated through. If we redo traditional again in the fall, which we were considering, we would do the same thing. Instead of doing those same folks play, if there are people waiting, they would get rotated in on the next games so that everyone gets to play and they don't sit out more than 1 game in a session.
That's helpful. Thank you. If you're on here and you're wondering about the ideal season, you can go to upward.org/pickleball. There is a timeline out there. We'll help you map that out. Chad or Joel, anybody want to speak toward an ideal season when you see ideal play? Is it any time? Is it more summer, fall? What are you guys seeing?
I think it depends on your facilities and your weather. Would be a big part of that. Ours is indoors, so what we do is we can't do it when we do basketball because basketball's inside. Obviously, they use the same surface, so we do it opposite of basketball. So when we have our turf sports like soccer and football, that's when we do our upward pickleball.
Yeah, I think it does. It depends on your facility, and so with my church, we did a spring and a summer session. They grew from the spring to the summer, meaning number of participants increased. The summer is interesting because you have people that are in and out more often, and so we had to have subs more often that would jump in. I'd ask. Good thing is I've got 3 boys who can come in and play, and I just say, "Hey, you're coming with me to practice tonight." We'd insert them where somebody's going to be missing. So it really is just dependent on your community. I think probably most people will look at a fall program or a spring program. To either start before basketball or maybe it's spring, so you do fall volleyball, basketball in the winter, spring pickleball, but it really is dependent on your area.
So if you're also on here and you're asking a question, I see some on here is how do I get this started? Great question. You just led the way. So let's talk about that. If you are a current Upward Church partner, you're going to receive an email from me tomorrow, and you're going to be able to claim your net sets, which we're going to talk about that here. But if you are looking to start pickleball this summer or this fall, and this is your first sport, or even I saw Emmanuel, you were on here asking about, you run your own sports ministry. How do I, bring upward pickleball to my church? You need to schedule a call. We need to get your system set up. That is the number one thing. So if you are not an Upward Church partner, I'm going to put in here upward.org/pickleball. Everybody needs to go to that website and you can schedule your call. If you're not a current church partner, that will allow you to speak with a team member here. They will help you build out your timeline. Even better, right? They'll make sure that everything is built out for you so that we can support you and serve you the best way so that you can reach your community. So that's how you need to do that. Let's see if there's any more questions that I saw.
I think one of the key things there, Jennifer, that might answer a few of these is when can I start? So you mentioned a couple times, like April 1st is when things will go live with a first practice date after July 1st. The reason for that is we want to make sure you get the advertising in there that you need to. We want to make sure everything's up and running the way it should be. And so you'll be able to do a summer session or do a fall session, and then whenever you would like to after that. So available April 1st, first practice July 1st.
Great. Also, let's say you run pickleball now in the fall, and maybe you want to run it in spring of 2026. Well, once you create your league inside of My Upward Guys, your resources unlock based off of your timeline. So it really is your sport, your time based off of the community and outreach that you're doing this. Last question, Paula, I am you. If I know nothing about pickleball, can I still run this? Absolutely. You need one passionate leader. Our materials will support you along the way. And I know, just like Chad and Joel, there is a passionate person in your church that you will find. And so schedule your call, Paula. We'd love to help. Last, one of the most exciting things is how do we claim our pickleball net sets? So if you're on here, we are excited. We have 200 net sets in stock, and a net set includes, nets. It includes 2 sets of paddles and 3 pickleballs and a travel bag that you can set up in 10 minutes. Joel said so, so I want to see you set it up in 10 minutes. I did it.
Send us a video. Set it up and send us a video of you setting it up.
I did it, Joel, and so you can do it too. So there's 2 ways that you're going to be able to claim these net sets. It's first come, first serve. If you're a current Upward Church partner, you're going to receive an email from me tomorrow. In that email, you're going to be able to click a link and tell me, hey, I'm starting pickleball summer of 2025 after 7/1, and I need 2 net sets. Or maybe you say I'm going to run it in the winter of 2025 and only need 1. So then that will tell me. And then when you create your league inside of My Upward, I will contact you and send you 2 net sets. If you're not an Upward Church partner, I need to get you in the system. So you need to head over to upward.org/pickleball, schedule your call so that you will be ready by 4/1 when My Upward is turned on for pickleball, so you can create your league. And that is where you too will get your 2 free net sets, and we'll ship those to you at no charge. How exciting is that, guys?
Right. And so if you're a past partner too, and maybe you're looking at pickleball and going, I'd love to get back in the game with this, you still want to go to that same website.
Absolutely.
Get set up so that we can
schedule your call. So if you are a past Upward Church partner, your system's already in there. So all we have to do is turn that back on. And so schedule your call so you can get your net sets. All right, last question before we go. Who is excited about Upward Pickleball? Put it in the comments and tell me when you plan to run it. Summer, fall, winter. Tell me when, and then we're going to close right here. All right, Brad, winter, hello. Spring, summer, fall. I love it. Keep it coming. Tell me when you're going to run it. And while you're doing that, I want to say thank you to our experts. Joel, Chad, you guys were phenomenal. Thank you for answering our questions. Stay tuned, guys. I may bring these guys back for like a 30-minute, let's put them back on the hot seat and ask more questions about Upward Pickleball. But Joel, Chad, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, guys, I'm gonna close this in prayer. For all of you guys that have listened in today, I hope you're encouraged about the sport of pickleball. I hope you see how relevant, how fun it's gonna be, but it is another amazing way to reach your community, to share the hope of Jesus. So let me close us in prayer. Dear Lord, I thank you for today. I thank you for Chad. I thank you for Joel. Lord, for every leader, every interested church partner that was on here today, Lord, that is looking to reach their community through the fun sport of pickleball, I pray for them. Lord, I pray that as they use this, that your name is furthered through communities around the country. Lord, again, we just thank you for this time. We love you, Lord. Amen. Thank you, guys. Have a great afternoon.